Welcome to the Woman at Work LinkedIn Live with myself, Sonia Barlow, founder of Like-Minded Females, aka LMF Network, and Charlotte Davis from LinkedIn. This series is our brand new series for the year, and it's all about ensuring that we are starting the conversations, having the conversations, and carrying those conversations on so we can create real change on LinkedIn through LinkedIn Lives, because that is where all the business professionals are, right? So if you want to talk to them, if you want to create change, if you want to drive impact, we have to meet them where they are. If you don't know me, if we haven't met before, I am an award-winning entrepreneur. I run Like-Minded Females Social Enterprise. We have the largest mentoring program in the country. It's all about upskilling, building confidence, capabilities, and careers. We're here to ensure that we can start the conversations, but bring real action points into the companies, into organizations, into our individual perspectives. Outside of that, I'm a LinkedIn change maker, which is amazing. And as of today, a LinkedIn top voice for careers and job searching, which is exciting because, believe it or not, that was my goal about 18 months ago. I was like, I want that title because I want to ensure that we are really sharing the tips and tricks that one needs to progress within the workplace. Today's conversation is all going to be about proximity bias, but I am not the person to be sharing that with you. So Charlotte, please can I invite you to the stage for an introduction? Tell us what a proximity bias is. And for everyone who's joining us, and I can see there's a ton of you, so I'm using my phone to make sure that we are using tech in the best way possible. Please use the comment section for any questions you may have. We'll be asking questions throughout and definitely at the end. So Charlotte, welcome to our first LinkedIn Live, and thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me. It's great to be here. And it's a great topic and one that we've been talking about a lot at LinkedIn. So proximity bias. So what is it? Why does it exist? And how is it impacting us all? So proximity bias describes the idea that we give preferential treatment to those who are physically closest to us and that we can regularly see. So what does that mean in the workplace? Well, it means that proximity bias manifests itself as employers believing that those who come into the office, who are there in front of them, are more productive than those who don't. It's the notion that those who are working from home or somewhere else are perhaps taking it easier. They might be doing less hours, they might be making less effort. So that in a nutshell is proximity bias.
Amazing. And why is it that was even something that you all researched? I mean, tell me a little bit about the LinkedIn research and the reason behind it.
Yeah, so we've seen this as a growing conversation happening on the platform. We know that the future of work is an incredibly important topic for both employers and employees, and we really wanted to unpick exactly how people were feeling about the future of work, about the future of hybrid work, remote working. And we've certainly seen that, there is still very much this idea that there is a stigma attached to working from home, and that there is this notion that if you are out of sight, you are out of mind. The conversations that the pandemic have kick-started are really important, and it's fantastic to see people using the platform and people like yourself really kind of driving open and honest conversations about about the way that we work. I think flexible working has become one of the most, relevant and important conversations happening when it comes to the future of work. I think the pandemic has really shifted the way that we feel about how we work, how we live, how those things marry together, what we want out of life. We've seen it called the Great Reset, the Great Reshuffle, the Great Resignation. But I think we've done a lot of soul searching, and we've really kind of focused on exactly what it is that we want from our working lives, what's important for us, our families. And I think what we really need to ensure is that we are collectively working together to challenge the stereotypical view that if you're not in the office, you're not working as hard as possible. We don't want to undo the progress, I think, that the pandemic has really driven in terms of flexible working and hybrid working, and and what that's meant to us. And we've demonstrated that we can do our jobs remotely, and so it's really up to us collectively to drive out this notion of proximity bias.
Absolutely. I mean, I've really enjoyed working from home. Bits and bobs, I like to go into the office, but small things like you get work done, you're comfortable. I actually love the fact that you can walk around in pajamas all day, right? You don't know what I'm wearing underneath this. I'm still in my lounge pants or trackies, but my top half is done. But I think most importantly, it's brought the human back into business. I do think that when I was working in corporate, so I graduated in 2015, I've worked in the tech sector before I started my own business. It was very corporate, it was very suit, it was very, you have to show up and be present in a way that maybe is very uncomfortable for most of us. And now we're bringing that human back, reminding people that actually we're working from home, but we've got kids to look after, or cats to look after, or a life, right? Even if you don't have carer responsibilities, you're still doing the cooking, the washing, the laundry. You're still making sure that you're okay. And then there's been such a great emphasis on mental health, which I think is an interesting topic because we're online all the time. So what can we actually be doing to do that? One thing that you said that really stuck with me was out of sight, out of mind. Now, I've read the stats and I've seen that 39% believe that there is a stigma attached to working from home. And yet we are in this new wave where we are hybrid working, where we are acknowledging that we can work from home, where the future of work, especially for the new generation, is we need to be able to be remote. We need to be able to work from anywhere. We need digital nomads. How is that really impacting people, and why do you think that stigma is attached?
I think also, just to touch on what you just said about mental health and this real shift in the fact that our personal lives and our working lives have been so have blurred, I guess, and I think that's a good thing. We don't leave our mental health at the door. We don't leave our kids at the door. We don't leave our pets at the door. That's who make us human beings. And I think the brilliant thing about the pandemic and the fact that we've been working from home and seeing each other's dusty shelves and kids and barking dogs, etc., has really brought a human element to it. Yeah, mine are there. So I think that's a really great thing. I think there's a lot. Especially now that offices have reopened, I think there is a nervousness. So perhaps whilst we're all mandated to work from home, perhaps it's easier for us to all be in it together. But now that there are people that are choosing or having to perhaps go back into the office versus those that will remain working from home, it's how we navigate the future of a kind of hybrid together. And again, it's thinking about the progress that we've made and making sure that this culture of presenteeism doesn't still exist, and how we work together to destigmatize working from home, and really kind of make sure that we're challenging these kind of old archaic stereotypes. And they are old and they are archaic. They really are.
And I think for anyone who's listening, of course, please ask questions. Tell us your comments. How are you feeling about working from home? How are you feeling about going back into the office? Do you even have an office to go back to, right? Because actually some people no longer have offices. But you touched on a word there, presenteeism. So for those who don't know presenteeism, from my definition, it very much is being present for the sake of being present, right? So having to sit next to your manager or sit next to your senior colleague or be in the office because that's what will look good. I used to work in consulting, and I'm a sufferer of chronic migraines. I'm very, very open about it. Depression, chronic migraines, they all kind of combine. But at some point, it used to take me 2 hours to go to work one way, right? One way. And I remember going to my office and being like, I can't do this commute anymore. Not because I don't want to work, but because physically there's no need for me to be here, but it's impacting me. This was pre-pandemic. And when they're like, that's great, but your manager needs to know what you're up to. I need to be on the desk next to him. And I remember going into the office, being at the desk, and he was never there. And I was like, that doesn't make any sense. Or going to meetings, traveling to the office for a half an hour meeting, which you could have done over Zoom, only to get there for someone to be like, actually, I'm sorry, we can't make it. And you're like, why did I do that commute? I think it's really it's helped us to recognize what's ethical, what's sustainable, what's waste, what's necessary. And this idea of presenteeism, where you don't actually just have to sit to do the work. We should be able to trust our people, right? Why do you think that presenteeism exists? As someone who is senior within a business, I guess you can see it from both sides of the coin, right? Is it something that, like you said, is just archaic and we don't know any better?
Yeah, I mean, I think we do know better, actually. I think we do. I think for many of us, we do know better. And I think, it comes back to the point that you just made, Sonia, and I think a lot of it is to do with trust. And actually, I think what we've all proven is that we can not only be trusted to work hard remotely, but, to deliver successful results and do our job, to maintain connection, with our teams, to maintain connections, to our colleagues, be able to deliver our work, to be able to drive results. It's amazing how quickly, and it was the buzzword of the moment, wasn't it? We all pivoted.
Yeah.
to working from home. And I think it does come down to trust. I think it comes down to culture, the kind of culture that you're in. And I think we are seeing a shift in leaders, and they really want to create a culture where people can be trusted to work wherever they choose to. And I think that's really, really important. I will also just add is that, there is a huge amount of joy and brilliance and wonderfulness to being in an office. And many people are running back to the office because they love being there. They love the energy. They love the connectivity. They love being with their colleagues. And I think it's just important to make that, it's really down to the individual and the kind of business that they're working for to find a solution that works for everybody. And there is no one size fits all solution. I think that's really important to make it. It's very much about tailoring needs to individuals, and that's important.
Absolutely. And what I'm hearing you say is community, belonging, representation, diversity, not in just the talent set, but the diversity of every business is different. So for employers that are listening, go and speak to your people, ask them what they're doing, what they're up to, what their day-to-day looks like. This is not micromanaging, but this is helping them to understand their calendars. Individuals, if you're feeling like you're overwhelmed with work, write down the tasks that you're doing, take that to your head, to your seniors, and say, this is what I've been up to. What are my priorities for the week? This is how I'm going to space out my time. And if you need that time away from your calendar, schedule it in. I think it was game changing when I started scheduling breaks, and I was like busy. So people don't put those meetings into your calendars. It's about how you can be savvy. There's some great comments coming through. So I'm going to apologize if I mispronounce anyone's name in advance. Indrajit says, we are working with skeleton staff as per the regulations. A LinkedIn user, name isn't coming up, saying, I had to leave my last role working from home and turn into non-stop availability. They expected us to be more available. We can definitely comment on that because, it goes both ways. Janvi says, flexibility is the way forward. But Shivani says, working from home has converted to being online all the time. How are you managing at LinkedIn to really keep that work-life balance going?
I mean, I think it's a really, and I think it goes back to my kind of point around how your lives are blurring, and perhaps, we talk about, it's fantastic when I'm working from home, I don't have, I lose the commute time, but actually, are you just using that commute time to add hours and hours onto your day? I think you have to have boundaries. It's really healthy for everyone to have boundaries. You have to make sure that you are ensuring time for regular breaks. You're ensuring time for yourself. You are getting away from your screen. It's no good for anyone to be sat in front of a screen all day. You need to move. You need to get fresh air. And we see, you mentioned, Sonia, about putting breaks in. And I was last year, I was really, really good at getting outside, and then we got really, really busy at work. And this is completely me. This isn't, anyone telling me to do this. I got terrible at not leaving the house because I can get, it was really bad for my mental health. And, you're hunched up in front of a screen looking, really not making sense of the words that are in front of you or kind of, coming up with anything brilliant, but you just get into a really, really bad rhythm. And I think it's making sure that you are looking at your well-being, you're taking regular breaks, get outside, take that call as a kind of walking call in the park. I've been doing this year, and it has been an absolute game changer. And we started to talk about it as a team, actually. Let's do this on a call outside, or you know what, can we just make this half an hour shorter, and I'm just going to get a walk and get away from it all. And I think, managers really should be thinking about leading with empathy and trust as well. Like, we should make sure that we've got really good cultural norms and behaviours and etiquette to ensure people feel like they are absolutely supported in having a break. They're supported and feel included wherever they choose to work, and supporting people getting away from their screen, taking a break is important.
Yeah. And I think so. And I think, we have to remember, managers are humans too. Like I think pre-pandemic, there was this big, at least generationally, I can speak, right? Especially also from a woman's perspective, there was like we against them. I think now it's everyone is us. It's an us against, being on all the time. There's an us against not boundary setting. So we're all doing the same or similar. And I think we have to always remember, empathy goes both ways. So if there's something that you can suggest, take it forward to your business and say, this is what I think we should be doing. This is why, or this is best practice that I've seen from somewhere else that we can incorporate. We shouldn't always be expecting senior leaders to filter down tips and tricks. If you are more junior, if you are alive in the business, if you're awake, it's okay to take it and to encourage them. I love what you said, walking calls. I actually have every Friday after midday, I have a no laptop Friday. If you want to see me, you're going to come and grab a coffee, or we're going to be on a phone call. I don't want to be on my screen. Leading with empathy, scheduling calendar breaks. Currently I'm doing 4 weeks in a Nike run app, not because I love running, but because it gives me a goal to be like, right, you need to get out of your house 3 times a week. Someone says, loving the honesty. We need to remember the human aspect in a workplace always, because at the end of the day, we are people, right? And I definitely think a lot of companies now are trialing the 4-day week, at least in the UK. Let's see what the results are. They've been well in Scandinavian countries. They've made sense. Do you have any comments on that, on the 4-day week?
We've seen huge conversation on the platform about the 4-day week. I mean, it'd be really fascinating to see exactly, what the results are. Flexibility is what we're seeing certainly from research that we've carried out, is that flexibility seems to be the number one priority for people. What they're looking for. We know for a fact that the pandemic has meant that everyone is looking for better work-life balance. Mm-hmm. They might not be achieving it, but they are certainly striving for it. And I think we're especially seeing that from women as well. So what we're seeing is that we know that women have been disproportionately impacted by the pandemic. There's been a huge exodus of kind of women leaving the workforce, specifically in 2020. There's been an epidemic of burnout. And I think, that has really shone the light on the fact that we need much more flexible working if we don't want women to leave the workforce. And I think that's really, really important. We're certainly seeing, and I think it's back to your question around, what is it that we can do to kind of support and lead with empathy, and especially when it comes to kind of, this flexible need for all of us, but especially when it comes to keeping women in the workplace. And I think we talk about, extra caring responsibility for women, certainly, thinking about elder care, thinking about caring for children, and why flexibility is really important for there. And maybe it is a 4-day week, maybe it's reduced hours, maybe it's a job share. I think it comes in all different kind of, it goes back to the point you made earlier, that there is no really one size fits all. But I think, historically, if you'd have asked someone that worked 4 days a week, or worked reduced hours, or did a job share, I think they would probably have said, sadly, that accidental favoritism played, a role, and they probably felt that they were thought of less, or they thought they were contributing less, or less likely to progress than perhaps their counterparts that were working full time. And I think, the kind of the 9 to 5 working day it's moved on. We've moved on. Our needs have moved on. And I think that's why it's really important that we destigmatize flexible working, or 4-day working as working any less, or whatever that might mean. And just thinking about creating a workforce for the future that works for everyone. And I think that should be the focus very much.
Absolutely. We've got some great comments coming through. The pandemic instilled a greater level of compassion in the workforce. We've got a great point from Sarah talking about walking and talking meetings, and leaders need to encourage and show it's okay. Marilyn, just agrees with everything we're saying, which is awesome. Women in the workplace, tell me, what are you feeling? How are you affecting? Of course, we've started with the LinkedIn research. We've spoken about proximity bias. We've spoken about favoritism, presenteeism. But really, these sessions are for women in the workplace, because we want to start the conversation. We want to make sure things are equitable, right? We want to make sure that we are focusing on what we can do to get better. So now that we've touched on women in the workplace, how it's negatively impacting them, my question to you is, if 44%, which I believe is from your research, believe that those working from the office are favored, what can businesses do to really mitigate that bias?
So it's a great question, and I think you've touched on some of these. We talked a lot about leading with empathy and leading with trust, and I think we have to avoid forming biases around where people choose to work. I think supporting social interactions are really important. So for those that are going into the office and having those water cooler moments, for example, how do we create those for those that are at home? And I think there are virtual coffees. There are great, we've done some fantastic things as teams where we've cooked, we've made cocktails, we've done things virtually that makes people feel that they're connected, and it's important that continues whilst those people return to the office. There are training courses for both employers and employees to ensure that everyone can get the most out of hybrid working, specifically thinking about flexible working and specifically thinking about women as well. List flexible working options in your job adverts, you'll see a huge increase in the number of applicants, particularly women. But actually what this also means is you are embedding flexible working into your culture from the outset. And so I think that's a really, you're not trying to shoehorn flexible working in later down the line. You're doing it from the start. Another thing, I think, and one of the comments came in just around leading by example, implement the leave loudly approach. And this doesn't have to just be in an office. This can be virtually as well. And it's very much around encouraging senior executives to leave the physical or the virtual office to say, I'm going to go and collect my children. I'm going to go and, see my mum. I'm going to go and do X, Y, Z. And it comes back to your point around, we are allowed to have a life outside of work. They very much blur between. We can talk openly about our commitments outside of the work. They make us who we are. And I think it's making sure that we can be encouraged and talk openly about the reasons that we need to leave at a certain time, and make sure that your leaders are doing that as well. So it isn't something that younger workers might feel nervous about. And again, and Sonia, you talked about it earlier. Talk, listen. Let's chat. This needs to be an open and ongoing conversation. We're all finding our feet with this hybrid working world. We're learning as it evolves. We don't have all the answers yet, but I think, making sure that we carry on talking, we kind of shine the light on the real issues that people are feeling today, and we start to help and work with each other on solutions.
Yeah, we've got some great comments coming in. So if you're just joining us, we are talking about proximity bias with Charlotte Davies from LinkedIn. She's a career expert. If you see me on my phone, it's because I'm taking notes so that I can create this into a blog and LinkedIn article afterwards, but also checking out your comments, which are amazing. We have Sharon who said, throughout the pandemic, we've seen that employees caring for relatives and loved ones who have had their medical treatments or surgeries delayed. Remote working continues to assist staff who are the primary and secondary caregiver, and includes those who, due to social, economic, or cultural norms, are a regular care provider. Absolutely. It supports inclusivity. We've also had a comment from Joanne, who says, talking about the 4-day working week, those employees that may be suffering from mental health issues often to prefer a longer week because it distracts them from their issues. Absolutely. But here, what we're highlighting is, to be truly inclusive and equitable, we have to ensure that people have their version of success and their version of tasks and their version of what the day and the week looks like. If I choose to work 4 days, that shouldn't stop anyone from working 5 days a week or 6 days a week, because people work differently. But as long as we're doing our tasks and the hours. Lara says, I love going into the office and have seen how this has helped me get to know the network with management. I can understand why people may say working from home might affect progression. So of course, she's backing up the research that we're already done with LinkedIn. And someone else says, it's also highlighting the true nature to us to add value and work more. Work more towards being inclusive, work more towards ensuring that we are being seen, we are being heard, and we are being believed, right? If 39% believe that work from home will negatively impact their career, or not being in the office might hinder their progression, their community they're building. Charlotte, what are some of your advices? What can they do to ensure that bosses are seeing their work, or that their performance is being noticed, as well as they're a part of that community? I mean, that's kind of a loaded question. I appreciate that. But it's now, what can people do? Because we always talk about the employer, and I run a D&I company, so I understand employers also need to be educated, but people also need to be doing the work, I think, at least. So at least they to build themselves up and be their biggest cheerleaders.
Absolutely. People need to feel empowered. I think, first of all, it's just making the point. Everyone probably does know this, but just in case they don't, is that everyone has the legal right to request flexible working. So I think, if you're worrying about that and you're just starting a new job, you have that right. I think, do your research, be confident in what you're asking, and just go into kind of, a new role or into a new conversation with the information that you need to kind of fight your corner. But actually, it's really important that if you are working virtually, you continue to maintain FaceTime with your colleagues and with your manager. And I think, we are mostly very lucky that we have been set up with enough tech during the pandemic to be able to do that. Fantastic conversations like I'm having with you, Sonia. But I think it's about making sure that there's frequency. Stay connected with your team. virtual coffees, regular catch-ups. Do the same with your manager. Use your professional community to talk about kind of new trends, etc., so that you feel like you've got a presence. I think speaking up about your progression is really important as well. Just because you're not there perhaps in the office to talk about what you might have just achieved, the results that might just be in, it doesn't mean that you can't do it virtually. Again, think about how you use your meetings to present your work. Think about the cadence of kind of sharing of information internally via email, etc. And I think it's really as well important that leaders make sure that their teams are empowered to share success, and think about how we should share success virtually, because I think that's a very important point. Flexible working is ultimately a benefit that we should all be thinking about, because ultimately it will benefit you, especially when you think about your work-life balance, how it will reflect in your work. So you really need to showcase this and ultimately show how this is an advantage for your company. There are loads of ways you can stay connected. It's just about making sure that you keep them up.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. We're coming towards the final 5 minutes of this conversation. It's only half an hour, again, because we don't want the online fatigue, but we want to get into these snappy, short masterclass discussions where we are sharing pure gems. It's like fireside chats, right? So let me know if you have any questions. I'm looking at the comments, hence why I'm on my phone, taking notes. We can build this into an article afterwards. We have the team online as well. So we have Alejandro, we have Eleonora, who are sifting through the comments, so we can answer your questions as well. Let us know how we can help you. Let us know how we can help your businesses. And if you are interested in the research that LinkedIn has conducted on proximity bias, Charlotte, where can they find it?
Yeah, I can pop a link in. Actually, it's on the platform. So we've got some fantastic tips and tricks around how leaders can help with proximity bias, and also we have some brilliant we have a brilliant page with loads of tips as well for employees on the day. So we can share that, and there's some really helpful resources that I hope will help.
Absolutely. So this thank you. This session will be recorded. You can replay it back. And then any extra comments we'll go through, including Charlotte's links. When we do the article, we'll also share that around. Nick says, I think a lot of this comes down to values of the organizations and how closely employee values match. These meetings are outcome-led, are vital, but relationships are also critical. Absolutely. I wonder how much we know about our colleagues when considering their workload and flow. 100%, maybe we don't, right? But it doesn't mean that we have to micromanage its logging, its conversations, like we've mentioned, communicating. It's maybe putting in 15 minutes every week just to say, we're going to talk about nothing but what work you're doing, what your priorities are, and what your workload looks like. Something I say to my team is, what are you doing? What have you done? What are your blockers? How can I help? Those are the 4 questions. And I'm like, you know what? Just WhatsApp me. Don't even jump on a call. Not everything needs a meeting, and not everything needs an email. Just send me a message on something that I feel is comfortable and go forward. How do you keep that communication going with your team?
I mean, we speak a lot, and we do it through every channel possible. But I love a WhatsApp quick chat, and I also love can I just jump on the phone? Like, let's just have a quick chat about it. Especially if you're not together. It's those when you swing your chair around behind, and say, can I just ask you a quick question? We can still do that. Just pick up the phone. I think we've got so used to video conference that perhaps people are afraid of just an old-fashioned call, and they work just as well. Sometimes they mean you can get outside as well. So even better.
Thank you. Our final question for you before we end today. This has come through, which is amazing. So thank you for sending it through. Someone says, what does the future of work look like for women? And how can we use this new hybrid opportunity to flourish in the workspace? Now, I want to open this up. Of course, what does it look like for women? Because that's our conversation. But the second part, how can we use it for everyone to flourish in the workspace?
I mean, for me, a future of work without flexibility could very well be a future of work without women. So, I think we need to make sure that employers are prioritizing flexible working going forward. I think what's clear is that employers are acknowledging that flexibility is vital, especially if they want to retain female talent and achieve gender equality at work. The alternative is women dropping out of the workforce at critical points in their career journeys, and that's definitely not something we want. So I think the future should very much be flexible, and I think we're hopefully on the journey to get there post the pandemic.
Amazing. Thank you. If you are listening, if you're joining us, we are finishing our session on proximity bias with Charlotte Davies, who is a career expert at LinkedIn. We will be sharing the research, the top tips in the comments. So, of course, you can watch that anytime. We also encourage you to follow Charlotte and LinkedIn to see what kind of research they have already conducted, but they are coming up, and to carry on the conversation is hashtag conversations for change. So far, we've discussed proximity bias is very simply favoring those that you are near, that you can see that's in the office with you. But how do we make sure that us as individuals, that we are respected for the time and effort? Well, we have to speak up. We have to communicate. We have to lead by example. We have to take new initiatives into the workforce and say, let's practice this. Let's try this. I've seen this work somewhere else. Let's make it happen. As employers, we need to remember that everyone is human, right? We need to put in time with our people to say 15 minutes. This is a personal conversation. This is a professional conversation. Check in consistently, constantly, frequently. But in order to ensure that the future of work is equitable, we need it to be flexible, because unfortunately, the pandemic, as have most things in the world, negatively impacted women far more than men. So it's about shortening that gap. We can't wait another 100 years for gender equity or equality. It has to start now. And once we start really supporting women in the workspace, we can start supporting everyone, because this is an intersectional, inclusive conversation. It's not just about gender, but it's about the idea that everyone has their differences. Every business is different. It's not a one-size-fits-all approach. So it's not about culture add, it's about value add. And it's about what we can be doing as individuals first, so that our businesses can become more inclusive. Charlotte, thank you so much for your time. Do you have any final tips, tricks, or anything that you would like anyone to follow?
No, I think Conversations for Change is brilliant. And I would just encourage people to continue to have these really transparent and honest conversations. I think they're really helping all of us. And, it's really helpful to be able to talk about the things that make us tick as human beings. And I think that will help us all do better, successful work. Thank you very much for having me. It's been great.
Thank you. So remember, hashtag Conversations for Change. Tag me, tag Charlotte, tag LinkedIn. We're going to have this conversation every 2 weeks now. So we have a Women at Work session by like-minded females and LinkedIn for the Changemakers campaign every 2 weeks. If you want to apply to get involved, you can just follow Like-Minded Females company page, and we can tell you how. And if you have a topic, a question, something that you're burning, a desire for us to talk about, let us know in the comments, private DM us, email us even, and we'll make sure that this year we are starting the conversation, we're carrying the conversation on, but most importantly, we're creating that change with and through LinkedIn. Thank you so much. Thank you, Charlotte, and thank you everyone for joining us.